All right, what's poppin', party people? Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Pop Talk. This is your man, Professor Nails, on signing on with the Casual Rand,
What up, though?
Boston Jared.
Peace.
All right, we are without Coach tonight, but you know us as the Pundits of pugilism, and we wanted to make sure that we jump into this news cycle. We're going to touch on a couple of things. One is a report that came out recently regarding Gervonta Tank Davis pay-per-view numbers, and we want to also follow that up with talking about Teofimo's performance or lack thereof this past weekend. So with that said, we're going to first talk about the pay-per-view numbers of Tank Davis and what that kind of means for him as the kind of face of boxing, and what that kind of says about his star power and drawing power. And it also had implications for other fighters that he has gotten a ring with, such as Ryan Garcia, for example. So with that said, we'll just kind of give you a bit of a background. So on Friday, it was reported, they didn't name their sources, but it was just from reports that said
it was Rick Glazer.
It was Rick from, well, not from, oh yeah, from Rick Glazer. That was from Saturday.
It was Rick. Friday. It was Rick Glazer, and I believe Mike Donovan also, or it was two guys that reported the same info though. It was two guys. So Glazer and I believe it was Donovan who reported that Tank Davis did just under 200,000 buys. At which point,
I saw like 150 something, like 150,
something like that. Yeah, something not good. People like to discredit Rick Glazer as a PBC hater. I thought it was interesting that the other guy, I think it was Donovan, who corroborated what Glazer had reported, which is not something that I have seen in the past. In the comment section, or Randy, I know you were on Twitter, InstaFace, or one of them shits. Whatever he reports on. I have never seen another guy in the boxing media corroborate Rick Glazer. So I thought that was interesting. Glazer has been right plenty of times in the past.
He does, but he does not get any love when it comes to the Twitter sphere and other things. That a lot of people just basically says he has no credibility.
I don't know that he doesn't have credibility. He's been right again. He's been right in the past. It's just that he's open about his disdain for all things Al Heyman and PBC. So people are quick to discredit what he says when it comes to anything related to PBC because they think he's biased. My position is I don't know what this guy has to gain from reporting dubious info except affecting his own credibility. One, and two, I've never heard anybody from PBC come out on social media and say this shit he's reporting is bullshit. So, if he has, I haven't seen. Like I said, I'm not on all them social media platforms like some of y'all be. So, but yeah. But today, Dan Raphael reported that apparently they did in excess of 300,000 buys and did 26 million at the gate, which is a significant discrepancy, obviously, from what Glazer reported. And, I find it interesting that Raphael is a notorious PBC fucking stan, right? This guy is a notorious PBC stooge, but nobody questions this guy's numbers. I don't want to say nobody, but the Tank fans, the PBC fanboys never questioned Raphael when he reports whatever inflated numbers or whatever the fuck. But yeah, I don't know. So 350 from Raphael, 150 to 200 from Donovan and Glazer. So I don't know. I notice it's a hot topic on social media and in boxing circles. For me, you can never ever tell. Like, how do we know what's bullshit? How do we separate fact from fiction when it comes to these numbers? right? It's not like the FCC or some regulatory body is overseeing this shit, right? I mean, I'm sure the companies they are, but the numbers that get reported, like, I don't know, like what do y'all? I
No, but
mean,
I mean, if it's under us, if like under certain state commissions, right, they have to report the numbers, right? Because like, so for example, the UFC doesn't have to report their numbers. But with boxing, it's a little bit different, right? Because they have sanctioning bodies that are a part of it. So right, that kind of regulates the
but that's
process.
that's the rub, Cam, because PBC is not releasing an official statement. It's proxies like Dan Rayfield who can report whatever number he's told to report, right? Because he's not going to be held responsible for underreporting or inflating numbers, right? Dan Rayfield is, as far as I know, what is he, a boxing scene
That's
employee?
that's
Right.
a
So
yeah. I see what you're saying.
that's
So
the thing.
that takes away their strict liability.
Exactly. You never ever heard PBC, Showtime, or whatever put out numbers. It was always a report by proxy, which makes the shit even more dubious, right?
All right.
So
So let's so just a little bit of context. So I don't think we gave the numbers, but so what um Dan Rayfield is reporting is that Tank versus Frank Martin did between 325 into 350K. So I'm gonna go ahead and list Tank's last few fights, just to kind of contextualize his star power. Against Ryan Garcia, 1.2 million. Hector Garcia between 200 and 250K. Against Rolly Romero, 275K. Against Isaac Cruz, 200K. Against Barrios, between 210 and 215K. And against Leah Santa Cruz, 200 and 225K. One thing that's significant is you said that they did 26 million at the gate. That's
yeah, that's not
like an
unusual for Tank.
astronomical number.
Yeah,
It's
that
it's
not.
it's it's a good number, and that's one of the things that people have explained to me was anomalous when it comes to the Tank, that he does exceptional gate numbers, but he does very, well, I wouldn't say poor. He does more pedestrian pay-per-view numbers. So yeah, that's not unusual when it comes to Tank. He usually does very good at the gate.
Yeah, and that goes back to like the was it Barrios? Like he was
Yeah.
fighting in Atlanta, he was fighting in New York. He legitimately like locked down the whole East Coast, and it was about the ticket sales for him. And it wasn't until like the Garcia fight where people started saying like pay-per-view face of boxing type stuff. But before he was like, man, hey, I'm selling out arenas that's not Las Vegas. And he was doing it on the East Coast, which was the only person that could do it at the time.
So I mean, just to kind of put that into context, if those numbers are true, that means that Tank against Frank Martin would have the fourth highest gate of any boxing match. I guess maybe in Vegas, for example. So the highest is Floyd against Manny, which was just ridiculously priced. So that did 72 mil at the gate.
72 mil.
72 mil.
Jesus.
Number two is Floyd against Conor McGregor, which did 55 mil at the gate. Number
God.
three is Canelo versus Triple G, which did 27 at the gate. And
Oh, I
then
thought you were gonna say Canelo Floyd. That's interesting. Okay.
yeah, I would think that too. And then number four would be Canelo versus Triple G again, which did 24. So basically that number would slide in between us. So that gate is higher than Davis versus Garcia, which did a little under 23 mil at the gate, that's why I was like, when you said that, because I think they were talking about this canceled Conor McGregor fight and how that had set the gate records for them because they had already did like 20 mil at the gate. And so when you said 26 for a fight against Frank Martin, that is But it also kind of speaks to the astronomical prices that they're charging for those kind of fights. And then there was a lot of star appeal that attended that fight. I will give them credit for that.
The other thing was the undercard, right? And what people aren't really talking about, I guess maybe they will tomorrow when more people pick this up, is the fact you had Benavidez on the undercard,
That's a good point.
And again, I don't, you know, when the initial numbers got reported, right, everyone called the event a flop. And when they called the event a flop, nobody blamed David Benavidez. The blame was squarely on Tank. So to me, it's a disingenuous argument for us to now, if we are to believe what Raphael's reporting, we can't sit there and give Benavidez credit for uplifting the event when, you know, a week or so ago, nobody blamed Benavidez for the shit flopping. So, I mean, looking at it objectively, right, of course you have to factor it in. But if you look back at boxing cards historically, right, nobody gives like who was on that undercard for some of those Floyd fights. I mean, I don't think there was anybody on those undercards, but I mean, traditionally the undercard fighters don't get credit for helping to uplift the event. It's usually the main event. So if these numbers are real, you got to give credit for Tank. You got to believe that Tank was the reason the fight did what it did.
As far as the gate or I mean, so would you?
Well, both.
Are you happy with those numbers for Tank Davis?
You know, again, I don't know if I believe any of these numbers. If let's say for the sake of argument that those numbers are legit, which I don't suspect that they are, but if they are legit, I think those are pretty decent numbers for to fight a guy in Frank Martin who's nobody has heard of. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. But again, the way you judge these events, and I wish Coach Dave was on here because Coach Dave is in the business. Did the event make money? Did the event lose money? Or did they break even? All of these numbers that you hear Raphael and Glazer report, they're all kind of meaningless stats unless we know if the event made money. And even if the event made money, I want to know how much money did it make? Did they make what kind of return was it? Was it a 10% return? Was it 15% return? Or was it 100, 200% return?
What promotional company giving you that kind of information?
No, I know they're not giving it out, Randy. I understand it. Nobody gives that shit out, but that's why I don't like to get into debates about if the numbers are good or bad, because I don't know what the bottom line is from a revenue standpoint, right? It's impossible. It's impossible to know because we don't know how much it costs to put the event on.
Yeah, and then you gotta also like with Tank and his numbers, man. You gotta fight somebody with you gotta have a good dance partner, man. Like nobody's talking about like Mayweather numbers with Maidana, you know, and wasn't that a pay-per-view but
Of course.
Yeah. That was pay-per-view.
So like, you know what I'm saying? The Garcia was probably the biggest who had one of the bigger fighters who had his own fan base to make that fight a great fight. The rest of the people that's on Tank's resume, not too many had a big social media or big following. So
well, they were Mexican though. They were Mexican. Leo Santa Cruz, Barrios, and fucking
he did have some Mexicans, but still, man, they ain't known to have a big fan base coming behind them that's going to buy pay-per-view fights off of their name.
Well, one thing I would, you know, I want to say to that cause is that I just noticed my light went out. Is that with Tank Davis, you know, at this point, he to give him the title of, you know, the face of boxing or not, that is somebody who is able to transcend the sport, and is able to kind of bring in those who are not diehard fans. And I think that the presence of the different kind of celebrities and different other sports stars that do come to his fight does give that indication that he does have some crossover appeal. But I mean, we can kind of state almost unequivocally that we don't talk about him being a face of boxing, but you know, the highest draw out of all of these guys is probably Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, but I think that's doing part of his activity level also. You know what I'm saying? Like him going to jail and all that other stuff, whatever his personal business is, but him fighting like once every year and some change is hard to be a face of boxing. Like when Mayweather was doing his thing, it was always twice a year. Canelo picked up that same mantra twice a year, and Tank hasn't. His been once a year. So it's hard to like get that traction to be that face of boxing, to always have his name in pundits' mouth when you only fight in once a year is difficult.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm guess. I mean, Ryan Garcia, he at least kind of averages at least two fights a year. And then I mean, and let's be clear. I mean, he also needs the right dance partner with him, because
Yeah.
we didn't talk about his numbers against Haney, which a lot of us want to kind of contribute that to him. But I'm pull him up because I had that's something that we didn't discuss. But from my understanding, Ryan Garcia versus Haney
Hit
did.
like a $500,000 or something like that. What they reported, right? Like 500,000.
I didn't think it was that high. Oh,
Oh,
okay, here it is. I'm sorry. Yeah, Haney Garcia did 500 plus. So for somebody like Haney, so I mean Haney's done numbers in the like in the in the five
teens.
digits. Yeah, like you know what I'm saying. What did he do against Prograis? Like 75 or something to that effect?
oh yeah. I was told. Yeah, I remember I had the text from my man. It was bad though. It was somewhere between 50 and 70K.
Yeah. So for him, Ryan Garcia and Haney to do 500 plus, I mean that's pretty good, because Haney he just does not have any drawing appeal at this moment. But I mean he's a topic of the discussion. Everybody knows him, you know, even if it's through his father, but at the same time it hasn't resulted in any kind of box office appeal for him at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think for nah, let me not say that, because I like with Garcia, it's like a little gimmicky. You know what I'm saying? It's his gimmick is it's like it's not like a stick, but it's not just based off of pure boxing talent that he has a huge following.
Yeah, I
So
mean, Jaime Munguia don't have a lot of boxing talent either. Neither does this kid Berlanga. I mean, it has to do with, and I think we should probably get into this when we do the Tiafimo segment. Again, it has to do with, you know, how you build your brand, one, and it's got to do with how you look. It has to do with it has to do with your ethnicity, right? Because if Tiafimo Lopez, and we'll get into more of this, and we do the Tio segment, if Tio was Mexican or Puerto Rican, he'd be the hottest thing. He'd be the hottest thing in the streets right now. Tiafimo Lopez.
I mean, partly, I
I,
mean,
I
one is
wouldn't go that far.
like Tio is
Nah,
kind of
I
a
would.
no, but I mean Tio's kind of a simp, and like let's be honest, like he's like Ryan Garcia's a pretty boy. Like Tiafimo Lopez is not a pretty boy by anybody's standard.
Tiafimo Lopez is accomplished, and he's much better at boxing. But I guess we'll get
Yeah,
into that when we do Tio.
we'll handle that. Because we'll kind of talk about the roller coaster that is Teofimo Lopez. But before we end this segment, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe. Please keep getting us the comments. We appreciate all of the comments. We actually have some very thoughtful people who kind of contribute to the commentary that comes out of our videos. But make sure that you get those likes up, and we are looking for more subscribers. So Casual Rand and Boston Jared, anybody want to end anything about this segment?
No, not really. You know, these numbers again, whenever you guys getting people out there who are listening, especially the younger fans who are listening, whenever you hear people talk about numbers, again, the only number that matters is, you know, did you make money? Did you lose money? Or did you break even? When it comes to any business, when it comes to any business, and these boxing stats are, a lot of them are meaningless stats. They don't have the context. We don't have the context to them. That's it.
I would push back a little bit because with the Turkey Al-Sheikh model, I don't think he factors into that. I don't think I just don't see how he's made money with paying these heavyweights these astronomical purses, and they don't really draw anything on pay-per-view. And I know their gates cannot be that high.
But yeah, but it doesn't matter because he's got state money, right? He's not pulling money out of his pockets. He's pulling money out of the Saudi Arabian coffers, which are pretty much, for all intents and purposes, he's got limitless money. So he can afford to throw a lot of money up front the same way Al Heyman, the same way Eddie Hearn did initially, putting a lot of money up to put on big events and generate interest. So yeah, is he making money? No, but these guys' pockets are so deep over there that it really doesn't matter if they lose. What's $100 million to some of these guys in Saudi Arabia? That's, they've got that in their couch.
Yeah, which sounds crazy, but all right, that's a good point. All right.